Looking ahead to the upcoming legislative session, crime is set to be a key issue for lawmakers. Early rumblings indicate growing bipartisan support for several proposals. We've told you about the proposal to make it more difficult for people charged in violent crimes to be released before their trial. Now, the governor has also floated the idea of a funding package to help the Albuquerque Police Department hire more officers. Now, will changes like this be enough, and will they get results fast enough? Surge Martinez, let me start with you. Let me just put it this way. If you live in Albuquerque, I don't care where you are no stranger to crime at this point. And at this point, perception is probably bigger than reality in some points, but reality is pretty lousy. How should we at first be approaching this? What's our attitude that should be about crime here? Just anger, or where should we be putting our emotions right now?
I live in Albuquerque, and I'm certainly aware of the sort of the zeitgeist on this particular point. Mm-hmm. I think, we are seeing from the legislature the same response. It's how many times are we going to have this exact same response? Yep. Oh, there's a perception, and there's a lot of different data that go into this, that crime is up. Therefore, our response is, let's talk about getting tough on crime, mm-hmm. right? And that response, how many times are we going to say, ooh, here's the same problem. Let's try the same thing, but harder this time, and then be surprised when things don't change. I think, it is unfortunate that we seem to just have tunnel vision when it comes to this and say, mm-hmm. we're just going to focus on, let's talk about severity of sentences, which we know is not a great deterrent of crime. Let's talk about, the governor's proposal to make it harder for folks to get out of pretrial detention is turned on its head, right? Putting the burden on the folks who are in that situation means, guess who's going to be suffering the repercussions of that? The folks who can't afford lawyers, right? And so once again, we've sort of said, let's try to make this system appear as tough without actually doing anything, instead of focusing on things, the systemic causes and systemic issues, housing stability, wages, social services, public mm-hmm. health, mental health services. These sorts of things they're not as sexy or as exciting and don't make for good headlines. Mm-hmm. But so I think we should be attuned to increasing crime, but make sure that our focus is not on something that is going to be flashy. And, the one-way ratchet of tough on crime is almost impossible to undo, although we have seen some strides in that recently as folks have come to their senses. Mm-hmm. But I think taking a real rational look, I understand, right? It can be really scary mm-hmm. and cause people to just want to focus on this thing right in front of them and something that seems like, the reasonable response. But we know that has not been a successful solution the other 50 times we've tried it.
Interesting points
there. We wouldn't be in it.
Yeah. Hey, Rebecca, here's an interesting way to look at this. I had a conservative friend over the weekend tell me, we were talking about this upcoming session, how Democrats really want to get after crime. And his point was Democrats trying to get in front of this crime thing and show other people how to go is like butchers trying to show people how to be carpenters. It's just not their thing. And the way he said it just cracked me up. I was like, okay, I see your point here, but someone has to do something. Is that legit? Democrats have not, if you really look at it, been the people to really put their heel down on crime and law enforcement, all that kind of a thing here. Is it credible to have them leading the charge here?
I think I think that's a valid point. For me, I worked in the Martinez administration for nearly 5 years, mm-hmm. and I think there is definitely a part of this that I was like, oh, now it's important. Okay, right. I see what's happening. But I think what we really have to do is challenge our Republican lawmakers to get past that, okay. because we all want the same thing, right? We all want a better New Mexico. So when I read that Representatives Ream and Maestas were working together on a bill, I was like, is hell freezing over? Right. Like, it's incredible that that's the kind of bipartisanship that we need. But it does feel a little kind of insulting. And I think it was Brandt who brought that up. Mm-hmm. So what you're saying now by having all these democratically sponsored bills, what you're saying now is that we were right all along. The
That's right.
conservatives were right all along that we should be doing it. As far as overall, though, I think this is never going to be a linear solution. There's not, like we can't eat this elephant one bite at a time. We have to have multiple people eating the elephant from multiple angles. And so that the addressing of, how are we best serving our constituency who needs long-term help and assistance versus how are we best serving our constituency by fighting and clamping down on some of the bigger issues. We're going to have to come at it from different angles.
That's a good point there too. Inez, interestingly, there's kind of a lack of specifics to this point. Early indications show bipartisan support, though, as Rebecca just mentioned, for a crime crackdown of some sort. Republicans have long been known as the party of law and order, as we know. Will they be content to let Democrats take the lead on this, especially going into an election deal?
I don't know if they're going to be content, but when you have a Democratic governor and Democratic majorities in both the House and the Senate, I don't know that you have much of a choice in who's taking the lead because they're going to be writing bills. What I fear is along the lines of what Serge was saying, is that the solutions we're proposing haven't worked in the past and they won't work now. Mm-hmm. I'm even less sexy than he is. I mean, obviously, you want long-term solutions like investments in education, investments in behavioral health, both of which are happening. But I want short, kind of medium-term investments that are very boring. If you're going to hire more police officers, then you have to hire more public defenders, you have to hire more prosecutors, you have to hire court clerks to enter the conviction so that when I get arrested for my fourth arrest, it shows that I have prior convictions and I can be sentenced as a habitual offender. We have neglected the criminal justice system for so many years in so many ways that passing a bunch of laws and not having the people to prosecute, defend, or heck, take care of them in the jail if they're there.
That's right.
Just makes a mess. So you have great headlines this session, and then what happens in a few years? And think about if they can amend the pre-trial detention, who's going to be watching those people in jails that are full of COVID and full of people who seemingly are beating prisoners and otherwise mistreating them without supervision and are short-staffed?
That's an
Is
excellent
anybody
point.
looking at the big picture at all in this state?
That's an excellent point. I hadn't really considered that. I appreciate you putting that on the table. Hey, Serge, Tuesday, the Albuquerque Journal had a very interesting editorial from the editorial board that read in part, let me read it to you, quote, "It's time Keller and APD Police Chief Harold Medina get back to basics. Beefing up police presence has always been a tentpole of the mayor's crime-fighting agenda, but it needs results. Citizens want and need to see more officers on the streets, restoring perceptions of a city rooted in law and order. Albuquerque, like the Rome of yesteryear, is burning." It's a very interesting little bit there. What they're getting at here in the full sense of it is if people don't see police on the street, if they don't see police cars on the corners, if they don't see police cars during, festivals of lights where, toddlers are killed by people with, side-by-sides racing up and down the street, reaching back to systemic root causes is not going to get anybody anywhere on the perception deal. Are they right on this as they propose it?
Yeah, I think there is actually some really interesting data out there that some folks have published in the last little bit about what happens when you increase police presence. And it's a little bit mixed. In some cases, it does reduce violent crimes. In some places, it doesn't.
Right.
What it always does is increase the number of folks who are caught up in the system for what we might call quality of life crimes, right? And those are disproportionately going to be poor people who aren't white. And so increasing police presence may have this effect of, again, reducing the violent crime, which is an unalloyed good thing. But if it's done without an eye to say, what are we focusing on? What are we doing this for? And it just ends up a bunch of folks getting, poor folks getting tickets for public drinking, then, the balance is off on that, right? I think.
Well, let me challenge you there a bit, Serge. If it is about public drinking, I don't think that would last too long. But what if it is about rates of violent crime and other things dropping just a little bit? Would that not make the point that perhaps removing the people, because the administration always says it's a very small minority of people committing most of the crimes. That's always been a big thing for them. Why are we not just locking up these people if that's the case? I hate to be so blunt about it, but it seems pretty obvious.
Yeah, well, so the like I said, the data seem to say that between 10 and 17 officers are equal one homicide, right?
Okay.
So it's hard to make a calculus on that, right? But that's in the places where it does have a difference. In some places, surprisingly, it seems like cities that have a large Black population, that you don't see that difference. No one can really explain the why, and there's lots of different sources of data that I was looking at. But yeah, as I was saying before, harsh sentences aren't the deterrent that we think they are. Certainty of apprehension is a real deterrent, right? And I think that's what happens when you see more police out there. So I'm not going to argue that that is a bad thing. What I am going to say is, if we then say, instead of focusing on these other things, right, that then get a criminal record for somebody who then has to, it has trouble getting a job or finding a place to live, but rather only focus on that. But instead we have our police out there focusing on the big things, but also smaller things, doing, enforcing speeding and whatnot, right? There are some cities that are experimenting with separating police from traffic enforcement. And I think these sorts of things, understanding what is it that the police are good at and what are they not good at, that really requires more than just saying, here's a lot of money, this will totally fix the problem.
Rebecca, we're just about to wrap up here. Are we asking too much of our law enforcement here? I mean, it just, we can't recruit people. State police are down, I think 11% vacancy rate. Santa Fe, of course, where Inez is, same thing. It's really not, is it about funding, or people just want to do the dang job?
I personally don't believe that there is any dollar amount that's going to fix this problem. I don't think the governor's $100 million package to hire more police officers will do anything. I don't think a 5% raise, 10, 20, 50% raise for our law enforcement officers is going to do anything to retain them. I think, and we've talked about this before, I think it's cultural. And I do think that they've been put, in the case of APD, I think they've been put in a near impossible situation where they've gotten the feeling that their administration doesn't back them up. The people don't always back them up. Their hands are tied with regards to the amount of paperwork that they're required to do to clear up old things. It's making it impossible for them to do their current job. And all of those issues create a scenario in which nobody wants to be a cop anymore, and the people who are doing it perhaps for the wrong reasons. And so I don't know what the answer is, again, but I don't think it's money.
I appreciate that last point there. It actually layers on the many layers of difficulty we're going to face here with this issue. Thank you all. All right, the legislative session begins at noon on January 18th. Be sure to watch the governor's State of the State address live right here on New Mexico PBS.